Gender inequality doesn't make sense on any level. By marginalizing the rights of women, we deny ourselves the opportunity to lift millions of men, women, and children out of poverty, not to mention the chance of a just and fair world. From birth, girls and boys, women and men are expected by society to play certain roles and behave in certain ways based on traditions, religion, and other beliefs. These behaviors are learned and shape the gender norms in a society. Unfortunately, in many countries, gender norms create disadvantages for women. Often, girls are not sent to school. When they become women, they then have limited ability to earn money or realize their potential.
This is a chart of the gender pay gap in developed economies. In the US, women are paid 17% less than men,
and in Japan, 22%.
On the other end, there's Iceland, where the pay gap is around 10%. It's one of the few countries in the world where women are paid almost as much as men. But that wasn't the case about 50 years ago.
In 1975, the gender pay gap in the US was 37%. Japan was 42%, and Iceland was at 40%.
So how did it go from here to here? To figure that out, you have to take a look at what happened on this day in 1975.
This idea was to show that we could bring society to a standstill. If we were not there, nothing was done. We expected a lot of women to show up at the demonstration, but not in our wildest dreams did we expect this.
This is the story of how Icelandic women shut down their country and changed it forever. 1975, when the United Nations kicked off
International Women's Year.
I would like to welcome you all to this really historic event.
This was the first global conference dedicated to women's issues.
Women form part of virtually every delegation.
And governments around the world planned events to address gender discrimination. On October 24th, 1975, 90% of Icelandic women refused to work at home and in the office. An estimated 25,000 women took to the streets in Reykjavik alone. Many women refused to work that day that Iceland shut down. Without women, the telephone system crashed without switchboard operators, and newspapers couldn't publish without typesetters. The national airline canceled flights because there were no stewardesses, and preschools across the country shut down. Women's absence was felt in the home, too. Without domestic labor that Icelandic women carried out, there was no childcare, so men had to stay home or bring their children to work.
It was this cooperation across politics and classes and housewives and women working outside the home. It was a celebration.
The impact of Fanafree was felt across the country. After the day off, Iceland passed its first Gender Equality Act and officially banned wage discrimination on the basis of gender. Equal rights of women were added to the constitution, and women's representation in parliament rose too. The world has completely closed its gender pay gap. Iceland still has some work to do too. But the country's quick progress is a sign that closing the gap is possible. Demonstrations like Fanafree might not work in the same way in other countries, but its success shows us what happens when a country unites, politically and socially, to get closer to equality.
Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men.